All right. Welcome to another Texans podcast, guys. We're excited to be back at it on YouTube. My name is John Crumpler. I'm one of your co-hosts, and I'm joined as always by Patrick Storm. Pat, how you doing tonight?
I'm fantastic, John.
You're dancing. Did you wear the black shirt so that the background would show
No,
through better?
no, I didn't really think this through, but I had to troll you a little bit just because of this.
For anyone that is listening on the recording tomorrow on Spotify or Apple Music, Storm has his background set right now to Steven Nelson's tweet from yesterday. Quote, LMAO, stop the narrative. We played to win. There's not too many corners better in man versus man than 21. Go find a real source. End quote. Pat, are we going to start with Steven Nelson tonight?
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. Let's just have fun with it because I thought it was hilarious. I was completely shocked that he went at you like that. I mean, I find it more entertaining that he was searching his name, right? And then that he and I know you didn't mean it in a negative way. And I felt that, I thought it was funny that he took it as a slight towards himself, that he thought that you were taking a jab at him. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
for anyone watching or anyone listening, I've got my vest on tonight because, like Steven Nelson once said, can't trust a guy that wears one of these. Thought it was appropriate for the evening that as I get to join Nick Caserio as people Steven Nelson has publicly dunked on social media over the last 3 months. Storm, there are so many layers to this yesterday. I've got three things I want to say, three things that I wrote down. Number one, I'm not apologizing. I was complimenting Steven Nelson. I think he came here from a very good Philadelphia Eagles team that decided to go in a different direction. He came to Houston. He had a bit of a resurgence that, played very well in Lovie Smith's scheme last year, played a ton of snaps in zone, and he played so well that it led to a pay raise. That's how good he did. And what I said is, hey, I think Steven Nelson plays really well in zone, and they played a lot of it. So I'm not going to apologize for that because there was no harm intended. Number two, nobody said that. We got to break down that Steven Nelson did a bit of a, I tweeted apples are good. And he said, well, why don't you like oranges? No one said anything about oranges. I never said Steven Nelson was bad in man coverage. I never insinuated. I loved he just kept talking. He was like, some zone routes turn into man. I never said they didn't. No one said anything about man coverage. I also love that he didn't defend Shaq Griffin about the zone coverage comments. Shaq was mentioned in the tweet too. I thought that was kind of funny. He wasn't
great?
saying, hey, Shaq and I are some of the best man corners in the league. He said, I'm one of the best man corners in the league. So just wanted to mention that out there. And then last thing, number three, defensive backs are weird cats. This is why you love DBs. It's a lot like tennis. It's people who are, they're on an island. They're out there by themselves. And you really got to develop a mental edge to play well out there. So if Steven Nelson on a victory week needs to search his name and look for, I really think people were glowing about him, honestly. He played a fantastic game. That's the first thing I tweeted back at him. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought he'd be like, oh, you're good, man. Just like watch it with the, maybe give himself some props, but double down on it. I love defensive backs. If Steven Nelson has a lockdown game against George Pickens this week, I'm going to be tweeting about him in zone every week for the rest of the season. But just a really funny development that I could never have expected.
Can we talk about it though, like a little bit more, because I sent you the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I sent you the career numbers for him. Where did it go? I'm going to look at. So this is per Pro Football Focus, right? For his career as a zone corner, he's graded as a 75.1. Man, he's graded as a 71.6. Both are very respectable, very good. He's done an excellent job throughout his career to maintain those numbers. Statistically, he's better as a zone corner, slightly. Okay. Per coverage snaps, the yards he's allowed per coverage snap as a zone corner is just under a yard. It's 0.93. And as a man corner, it's 1.14. So again, statistically, he is better as a zone corner than he is as a man corner.
And he's not even a bad man corner because nobody said that.
No,
That
not
was
at
not in
all.
the tweet. That was not even insinuated. They played a very zone heavy scheme and it worked great against Jacksonville. But I'm glad you brought the receipts. I was going to leave it be. I will say another because after you brought that up, I kind of looked. It was interesting. He played way more snaps in zone under Lovey last year. But to Nelson's credit, he was ranked higher in 2022 in his man coverage snaps than his zone coverage snaps, which I found interesting. But yeah, no one was insinuating that he is a bad man corner. I was just saying, hey, you've been playing really great in some zone schemes, and they had dialed it up, and you
Yep.
shut down Trevor Lawrence and what a lot of people called a top 10 offense heading into the year. I'm glad you brought the numbers. I wasn't even going to say it, but the
It's
show's a
fine.
little
And
better
and
from
I'll
that
talk
here.
I'll talk to him about it later and reiterate that you were not trying to be, negative about anything or anything like that. And it'll
There,
blow over.
there's
And
no way he sees this. It's already blown over. I would have to
no,
say.
I'll send it to him. I'll send it to him and make sure he sees it. I will I'll clip this portion and I'll send it to him and include this part too and make sure that he sees it. So
Well, that'll be something you're gonna have to tell me how he responds to that.
I'll show you.
Okay, I can't wait. What a start. Okay, another thing I do have to comment at is I don't understand why people felt the need to pile on this. I was pretty stunned at that. Like I guess like maybe there's some animosity towards me on Twitter that I haven't like previously felt. Maybe people just love siding with players, power to you. A lot of players don't tweet during the season. If you want to do that, you can do that. But that was definitely an interesting part. I'm like, guys, I see what he said. I'm seeing it. Like you don't have to tell me.
Yeah. And it's weird because when all the drama was going on before the season with the contract and stuff like that, the little holdout that he had, it wasn't even really a holdout, it was a hold in, I guess. People wanted him traded. People wanted him cut. Like they did not want him here. And now all of a sudden, because he signed the contract and he's here, it was like you became public enemy number one because
I know.
you said something
Because
positive
I
about
said he
someone
was
else. It was
great
very
in
weird.
zone because I complimented him.
It was
I
very
mean,
weird.
what is my tagline generally? Fandom's a disease. I think this would
Yes.
quantify in some of the responses I got yesterday. It was a great litmus test though for how to use the mute button on some people. So at least that
Yeah.
got one for me.
Yes.
Storm, I do want to talk some real football tonight. Any comments that we want to pull up? Oh yes, thank you, Jay.
I got our boy Jay saying, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to these guys. Appreciate it, Jay. You're awesome. Jay, if you guys don't know, Jay has his own channel. And Jay, forgive me because off the top of my head, I don't know it. Feel free to plug it and I'll share it. But Jay does some fantastic stuff on himself on YouTube. It's the Moderate Texan, I believe, something like that. And I know that part, Jay, and I don't know the channel name. I'm sorry. But Jay's awesome. Jay's been around for a long time and been a big supporter, so we really appreciate it. So Jose's cheering on the Dynamo just like I am. They're playing in the Open Cup final tonight against Miami, so we're going for the Dynamo, baby. There, Giovanni is it's the Moderate Texan. Yep.
All right, Storm, I'm going to let you open this up. I'd like to transition to, the Texans are coming off probably their biggest win of the last 3 years as a franchise. They go into Jacksonville, they win the game. It's a bit of a breakout on the national scene for CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. Not to be overshadowed, Will Anderson blocks a kick. Everything is breaking right for you. I love when your kids come into the frame.
They're
Everything's
both
kind of
standing
breaking
over here
towards Houston that past week, and suddenly
Yeah.
they're carrying a lot of positive momentum into week 4. Some public support that I didn't think would have been possible until well into later in the season. What are your initial thoughts from the Jacksonville win?
I mean, man, honestly, like all three phases of the game, right? And now we could talk about the special teams because that phase of the game was between the block punt and then Andrew Beck running back the kickoff for the touchdown, like was phenomenal, right? Started off a little slow. The first drive was a little clunky. But then outside of that, man, it was just like everything clicked. Everything clicked for this team. And it was awesome to see. I'll be 100% transparent. I did not watch the game live. I had to watch it after the fact. I was watching it in spurts because we were at baseball, so I was watching a lot of it in spurts as it was unfolding, not right there with everybody else. But all in all, I enjoyed it. It was fun to see. The energy was different this week, and that was something that I touched on that on the last episode, that the energy had to be different, right? The energy had to be better for on the sideline. It had to be better on the field, and it was. And I felt it, and I loved it. So kudos to D'Amico and staff for bringing that back and getting it right, getting that part fixed. Slowick changed up some things on the offense. The defense looked better. Yeah, we're not sacking the quarterback at an insane rate, but they are ranked number one in DVOA and pass rush win rate. So we're gonna take that, and we're making the quarterback uncomfortable. That's what we want to do. That's what they want to do as a defense, and so kudos to them for making that adjustment and getting it fixed.
Yeah. I'll speak from a different perspective. So I was able to go in person, caught the game with some family this week in Jacksonville, which was an awesome time. I've been able to go back and watch the tape. I've seen a few plays here or there. I've been a busy week with school, but it felt like a week where everything broke right for Houston. I mean, let's start up front. Like you said, the offensive line, after taking 11 sacks in the first two games, CJ Stroud is sacked 0 times by the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is incredible. I think that is a testament. In part, CJ deserves some credit. He was getting the ball out really quick. You could watch some of the pocket navigation, just the way it's so graceful how he's feeling pressure. He's sidestepping it. He's keeping his eyes down the field. He looks like a veteran out there. But a lot of credit goes to that makeshift offensive line. You've got 4 backups out there. And after a week of practice, I think they changed it up a little bit from what they did in week 2. They were there and they played a great game against Jacksonville that has, you've got a former number 1 overall pick in Walker. You've got Josh Allen there as well, he's been a very good pass rusher with the Jaguars, and they kept CJ clean the entire game. The run game still struggled, but it was productive enough to get them yardage when they need it. And it was kind of what you expected to see with Houston, where they got chunk yards through the passing game. And when the run game had to be there, it was there. Obviously, a breakout contest for Tank Dell. We'll be talking about him later tonight, I'm sure. But 5 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Some broken coverage. I do want to acknowledge, as we transition to the defensive side, that Houston got some help, and I think they needed some help if they were going to beat the Jaguars by 20 points. Some pivotal drops from every member of the Jaguars. I think they lead the league in drops at this point. There were some broken coverages that led, especially to the last Tank Dell touchdown in the second half. But you got to play what's put in front of you, and they capitalized on those mistakes time and time again. I thought they had a fine game plan to put guys in position to make plays, and they made just enough of them on defense, whether that was the Blake Cashman interception or the 2 corners without Derek Stingley, after we just talked about it for a little bit, holding their own. And Nelson, more than holding his own, really playing a fantastic game out there. And I would be amiss, Storm. The Jaguars, they got to fold the franchise because they gave up a kick return touchdown to a fullback. My uncle looked at me and he's like, "Who's that bringing it back?" And I'm like, "He's wearing the number 47. Like, that's all you need to know. Like, that is what the Jaguars gave up on Sunday." So really a perfect afternoon for Houston. And it feeds into, one of the most energetic weeks I can remember in the last 3 years.
This isn't really relevant. Was Beck the first signing we had of the free agency period this year?
It's technically going to be Robert Woods because he was signed the day before free agency opened.
You're right.
But he was a day 1 signee.
Okay, but wasn't okay. Was Woods a street free agent though?
No, so that's what I'm saying. I guess the first free agent by this by the D'Amico Ryans Nick Caserio partnership would have been Robert Woods, but he didn't have to wait until that period because of the way he was released.
Gotcha. Okay. So home run signing. Don't care. Anybody can say whatever. Andrew Beck's been a home run signing.
It was worth it right there.
100%. 100%. So, and I just tweeted this, and I want to make this point real quick, and this is completely not relevant to the Texans. I'm so over this Taylor Swift crap. It's now become breaking news now that she's changing, that she's going to be attending games. and by the national media, and I'm done with it. I've just muted the word Taylor Swift on Twitter, so I never had to see it again.
Dude, you're gonna hate me for that. I kind of love it. I kind of love it, Storm. I think it's the
John.
crossover America needed. It's
John.
hilarious. It doesn't make any sense, but for what Travis Kelce publicly shoots his shot when Taylor Swift's coming by the stadium for her tour. It turns into this. I mean, what a win. I'm really just thinking about how much money the NFL and Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, I mean, if you saw the merchandise sales, they're all getting rich after this while the rest of the country – I saw a tweet this week that said it's the closest thing the United States has to a royal couple. Like, that is kind of how it feels this week. We've got Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. But
I mean, and I like Travis Kelce. I really do. I like the podcast he does with his brother. I think it's great content. I don't know, man. Maybe just because it's been so much, like it's just been a lot over the last week about her. I don't know. And my wife loves Taylor Swift. My wife is a big Swiftie.
And I think that actually marks a fine transition point. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with what are you laughing at?
My wife is literally sitting 10 feet from me and texted me the word hater and said that Taylor Swift made Travis Kelce's career. I mean, he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, but Taylor Swift made him.
Don't fall for it, Storm. I'm pretty sure that's a TikTok trend of
yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on. So back to the Texans. I'm sorry.
I mean, I love it. I'm not a hater of it at all. I think it's hilarious. I think people are engaging with the sport that wouldn't have otherwise. It's fun. It's a lot of. I will say, I do think it might kind of be this weird blessing for the Chiefs in that they have a nonsense, non-football storyline around the team. Like, they're the reigning Super Bowl champs, and no one's talking about it because everyone's just talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Like, that's
it's a plant to distract them from Jackson Mahomes. I mean, exactly what it is.
It could be. We could dial up some really good conspiracy theories about the Travis Kelce Taylor Swift relationship on this podcast, but instead, we could also preview. Houston's got an upcoming game this week. They're back in NRG Stadium. They're going to be wearing the battle red. It's going to be J.J. Watt's jersey retirement ceremony, and they're taking on the 2-1 Pittsburgh Steelers.
No, they're not retiring his jersey.
They're not retiring the number.
No, it's just Ring of Honor. I don't know if they'll ever retire a number. It's very difficult in the NFL to retire numbers.
Because you only have so many of them.
You only have so many, and you have 53 guys on the roster every year, and you're just very, I don't know. Maybe one day, if Andre gets into the Hall, that may happen. It may be the one, but I feel like the Ring of Honor is their way of doing it. It's never going to be. There won't be jerseys hanging in the rafters.
Okay. Well, let's talk about J.J. Watt's Ring of Honor induction.
Let's do
it. How excited are you for it? What do you think it means for the team? How do you feel about the timing of it? Because the timing of it, frankly, couldn't feel more perfect with where this team sits right now amongst national headlines.
I think it's really cool that they didn't waste any time, right? They got right on it. The first season after he's retired, it just so happens that the script was written that Pittsburgh is going to be playing in Houston. His brother's there. Both of his brothers, right? I don't know if Derek's on the team. I'm going to have to Google that real quick. I know Derek was on the team. Where is he? I'm gonna Google it. Derek Watt, slick player, fullback. He's a free agent. So Derek will be there. Family and all that stuff will be there. It's a really cool storyline. But I love that they didn't waste any time. They wanted to make sure, they could have done it against in the home opener, but obviously with his brother being in town, it just makes it that much better and that much cooler. I think Derek or TJ should not play in honor of his brother, right? That's as an ode to JJ Watt.
He should watch the game with JJ, spend time with his brother.
Exactly. That's the nice thing to do. That would be the brotherly thing to do, right? No, it's Philadelphia is the brotherly love, right? Damn it. I was going to say Pittsburgh, but it doesn't work.
You were close. They're both from Pennsylvania. We're going to give it to you. Points on the scoreboard.
I'm in the right state. Okay. I'm in the right state. So I think it's I'm happy that the McNairs did it the right way. It'll be cool to see Janice there. And the fan base loves him. He'll always be adored by Houston fans, no matter what. And so it's cool. It helps mark the turning point in this franchise where hopefully things are heading in the right direction. Um, because also, and I'll jump to this and not to turn anything negative, but early, right after Chris Myers retired, the Texans did not have a good reputation when it came to their veterans or the guys that were former teammates, former players, and their relationship with them. It was not good. And so they went through some growing pains and they had to change some things, and they've got it fixed. And so this is it's JJ Watt, man.
Yeah,
He's the storylines and everything like that write themselves with him, and we'll forever remember the things that he did both on and off the field.
yeah.
So I'm excited for it. I really am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so easy to write this off as a formality. Of course, the Texans would induct JJ Watt into their Ring of Honor,
Yeah.
but I think it represents some bigger things than that. I mean, JJ Watt is forever. There's no way anyone is ever better than him as a defensive player in franchise history. I mean, you've got someone who's talked about with like the all-time great defensive lineman, defensive edge in NFL history, not for his decade, not for this team, in the entire league. And he left at a time when I would say, I think the Houston Texans were rapidly approaching what was rock bottom for them at a franchise. I think there was a time when we didn't know what was the relationship. Of course, he'd always loved the city, but the relationship with the franchise, what was it going to look like? Where were the Texans going to go? What was going to happen with JJ? And for it to come together in this way that, I mean, he's excited about it. I mean, he's talking about the Houston Texans every week on the Pat McAfee show, basically. Free PR for the team. He's buying out a whole page in the Chronicle, really embracing the time that he had here while the team so openly embraces him. And I agree with you. I'm glad they acted promptly with it because he deserves it. As soon as he was done playing football, he needed to be honored here and just made that, hey, JJ Watt was a Houston Texan, and they've done this the right way. And then the circumstances of it, I mean, he's coming back. He'll get to watch his brothers play football, something that he's always said is so important to him. I mean, even publicly admitted he would have gone back to Pittsburgh, but he knew it would have affected TJ Watt's, his brother's contract that he was angling for at that time. He wasn't going to take away any money or be used against his brother in leverage there. So I think, and then that comes when, hey, Will Anderson, CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, D'Amico, a lot of other young, exciting guys, they're making this team look different. The way the national media is talking about the Houston Texans is shifting. It feels like the opportunity for just a really cool moment, and it will be regardless. But we could be talking about a like franchise altering Sunday if they go out and beat what was an AFC playoff contender, and they do it with a lot of the new look Texans things that they've worked really hard to do over the last 2 years, whether that's the young players, D'Amico, the draft picks, like you said, working to bring people back into the organization. I mean, heck, even the Battle Red. I think it's aligned really well.
Yeah, and it follows in the I guess how the flow of things are going, right? Bringing D'Amico back, JJ's gonna be in the Ring of Honor, new uniforms next year. This whole rebranding of this franchise. And so it's right on time. I feel like it is very well done, and I can't wait Sunday to watch. I know NFL halftimes are very short, or they feel like they're very short. It's like 2 commercials almost, what it feels like. But I almost hope that the NFL maybe gives us an extra 5 minutes because I know JJ's going to have this really long and exuberant speech. That's just how he is. And I hope we get to freaking watch it. I'm going to be super disappointed if it's not on TV.
Yeah.
So,
and I imagine it'll be equally nice for the TV networks as the viewers to make sure that they've got eyeballs watching JJ Watt.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so few people who live up to like the hype of like, oh, they're this incredible athlete or this incredible star, whatever their field is, who also bring it as that person when they're not on stage or not on the field. And he's one of those guys. I mean, it's captivating watching whatever he's doing. I'm excited to see it too.
Yeah.
And that brings us, of course, 25 minutes into the game on the field that the Houston Texans are going to play. Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-1. They've dropped their opener to the San Francisco 49ers in pretty embarrassing fashion before reeling off a win that was fueled by their defense against Cleveland, and then a somewhat controversial win on Sunday night over the Vegas Raiders with Josh McDaniel kicking a field goal down 8. Coming into the game, they're 22nd in points for. They're tied for 19th in points against per game. I think everyone would say this is a defensive team over an offensive team, something that mirrors a lot of what people thought Houston might look like coming into the season. Storm, what are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and how do you think they look as a matchup for Houston?
Defensively, it's very scary, right? Like, I think that's a given. TJ Watt is 1A maybe to 1 and 1B to Micah Parsons in the NFL right now as the best defensive player, as one of the most feared guys. And given the Texans' offensive line situation, makes it even worse, right? Like, even having the starters, it would have been one thing to face TJ Watt. You obviously would have to account for him at all times because he's just that damn good. But now you're talking about potentially a third left tackle, your backup right tackle, your starting right guard, thankfully, backup center, third center if you count Quisenberry and then Scruggs going down, and your backup left guard. And so, like, there's just so much uncertainty on the offensive line already, and then you add in the idea of having to account for a guy like TJ Watt, and it just scares me. But I liked the way that CJ handled it today, the questions in the press conference. Did you get to see it?
I did. Oh, the Stroud comments?
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent stuff.
Yeah. Like, the way he handled it, the way he approached it, it wasn't anything of, puffing his chest up and anything like that or talking smack towards the Steelers, being arrogant. He was just super confident. And we love that. And that's what we've been missing that for the past couple of years. Not to say that Davis wasn't ever confident, but there's just a different feeling whenever it's CJ up there and he's saying the things that he's saying. But, and then offensively, they're wonky, man. They're just, Kenny Pickett he's not great. He's not good. I don't know. And then outside of Pickens, like, we haven't seen Najee Harris be able to do anything at all in the run game this year. I saw I don't remember what the stat was, but he was dead last in it in the NFL. And it was just absolutely, mind blowing to see because I thought Najee was going to be a monster his entire career, but who knows? And, I saw somebody mention this earlier. Their injury report looks just as bad as ours. There's a ton of DNPs on there, did not practice. Not so much as, prominent names, but when you're banged up, you're banged up, and it affects you all over the place. So we'll see, man. I don't think I had the Texans picked to win this game. I think some things, with LT going down, being injured, and now Josh Jones being injured, that kind of reinforces that idea. But seeing the way that they played last week, the Texans played last week, I don't know, man. I think it'll be a little bit closer than what we were expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a game that looks a lot closer than it did just a few months ago when you were looking at it on paper. And that's because some of these names and the way we think about them have changed. I love that you brought up CJ Stroud's comments because it is funny for someone who was a little unhinged at the podium. Like, I loved so much when he was drafted because he was saying things. I was like, wow, this guy's going to speak his mind. He speaks with such a level of maturity, but also it is, like you said, it is confidence. It is so confident, but it never borders on arrogance. It is a humble confidence. Like, as much as it's like, hey, we think we can beat these guys. Like, we think we're great, but he never tears anyone down, never tries to make too much of himself. He's a team guy, the way he talks about it. I mean, and I think it's fitting that as those comments have evolved, how I think of Stroud at the podium, who he is as a player has evolved. Yeah. I mean, this is someone who we were hoping, as a rookie, can you be a top 20, top 22 quarterback like in the league in your first season? And he's coming out and he's up there with the best rookie seasons through 3 games that anyone's ever had. He's got people watching the film that say, hey, I mean, these people who do this professionally, this is not people like me. This is a full-time job. Guys like JT O'Sullivan, Benjamin Solak, and they're saying Houston got the right quarterback. This is high-level NFL quarterbacking, and it's only going to get better as he improves and as the cast around him. So I fully agree. It's a matchup that looks a lot different than it did even just a few weeks ago. And I think you gave a great high level overview. So I kind of want to go into some of the specifics of the matchup like we did for that Baltimore game. Storm, what is an area of the game that you think Houston has an advantage in, or you're really excited to watch them attack?
I am very excited to watch them attack Kenny Pickett. I really am. As I mentioned earlier, they're first in the league in pass rush win rate. And I feel like this may be the week that we see some sacks possibly come in bunches, and maybe help them boost their confidence against the run game. We've seen the past couple of weeks that the run game has been kind of their weakness, and so I'm hoping that this week, with how the Steelers have just not been able to establish a run game, that this is a week that the Texans can take advantage of that and really apply some pressure to that Steelers offense and keep that trend going where they're not able to establish the run, and then slowly but surely start to pick apart Pickett and, just put pressure on him, man. That's the name of the game, is just keep putting pressure on him.
I mean, by no accounts does anyone think the Steelers' offensive line is great. It was actually a huge problem the last 2 years. And I think this could be the week that some of those pressures and hurries turn into sacks for a guy like a Will Anderson.
Yeah, and that's who I'm really watching is Will. I know the numbers aren't showing up on the stat sheet, right? Like, you're not seeing, he's not racking up 6-7 sacks already in the season like a guy like TJ Watt has. But you're seeing some really good things that he's doing when you go back and watch the film, and it's evident. He's winning a lot of his reps, and that's what you want. That's what you want out of a rookie. Is you want to see him just establishing himself in the league as somebody that's going to be a formidable opponent moving forward every week. So,
yeah, no, I think they've got an opportunity to heat up a guy like Pickett and see if they can force some errors. Something I'm really interested to see is how does Houston's passing attack continue to evolve? I think that's an obvious narrative, but it's one worth talking about when you look at the Steelers defense. And I was checking out some numbers before the game per NFL Next Gen, not a real stat per Steven Nelson, real stat per everyone else. The Steelers run so they run their base defense at one of the highest rates in the league. So they're base 3-4. They're about 36% there, 40% nickel, basically a third. But they run a lot more dime than the rest of the league. So what they like to do is they bring out Keanu Neal as a third safety, and then they'll put, or it might be Kazee. I think it is Neal. I think Kazee's the normal starter, and they'll put Joey Porter Jr., who they were able to take with the finesse pick, the Chase Claypool pick.
God, what were the Bears? The Bears are so stupid for that trade, man.
I love how quickly everyone has turned on Ryan Poles nationally, because there was a time like the media was like, this is one of the best GMs in the league. Look at the Bryce Young trade. And it's taken about 2 months for everyone to be like, well,
what? Yeah,
your offseason plan for the Bears was otherwise terrible, other than getting a huge. But we're not here to dump on the Bears. We're not here to dump on not needing the number 1 pick. We're here to talk about the Texans. So with that said, I think that's going to lead to some interesting ways that you can attack them if they're so frequently showing you on basically 2/3 of snaps. You're seeing either a very favorable personnel grouping to pass it in their base defense, or you're seeing what's a bit lighter. I think Keanu Neal, he's a bit of a thumper, like from that safety role. So you could like say he's like a linebacker there, but that's a defensive back heavier spot. And does Bobby Slowick have some plays for these tells of how often Pittsburgh wants to show you what they're expecting based on their personnel? And can these wide receivers, another aspect of this all is, who is going to look like Houston's number 1 after 4? Because at first Nico Collins exploded, and he was kind of held in check last week. He had a solid game, but there was a drop that I thought was a bit uncharacteristic for him on an out-breaking post route. While Tank Dell exploded in part due to some missed coverage, but that's what Tank can do. He's so quick. I want to continue to see where Stroud is looking and if any one of these tight ends will step up. I think it's a place that Houston can attack them, and they're going to have to win the game.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So
I've got it up here per next gen again. It looks like Pittsburgh is 11th in passing yard, or they've allowed the 11th most passing yards, 779. They're right behind the Jaguars right now. So I think this is a team that you might want to air it out against if you can. Really interesting because their passing EPA is really good. I love this tool. I'm a nerd, but I think anyone listening to us already knows that. All right,
you're a doctor, man.
That's fair. Doc, we like data. We like to know things. Kind of have to. And this is a good transition point. What is, and I think you already touched on it, but it's worth talking about more. What is an area of the game that you're concerned about for Sunday? Because there's a pretty obvious one here.
Yeah, it's the offensive line. We already knew that Tunsil. Well, yesterday, I shared some news that it wasn't looking good for him moving forward this week. We hadn't gotten an injury report yet, but I talked to some people that I trust, and it was not looking good for him. He's going through a ton of rehab and stuff like that right now to try to get back out on the field. Atlanta looks like the obvious game for him to get back. So week 5, him, Titus, possibly Juice Scruggs, everything like that. So that's definitely a concern, right? The offensive line is the biggest, it's been the biggest area of concern since week 1 with all the injuries. So, and it's just going to continue to be like that until they're 100% healthy. And God, man, I hope they can get healthy this season, because with seeing some of the things that we've seen already out of CJ, and the wide receivers are kind of exceeding expectations. I really want to get a healthy offensive line and see what they can do with that, man, because I really want to get Dameon Pierce going. And I feel like until the offensive line gets there and gets healthy again, it's going to be really, really hard to see Dameon Pierce get going. Another thing, we lost Josh Jones today for this week, potentially, according to Aaron Wilson. And talking to somebody else that has known Josh Jones since his U of H days, Josh has a chronic hand issue, wrist issue, that's been nagging him for the longest time. He's been advised to get surgery, and hasn't done it yet. And continues to play and try to establish himself as a decent offensive lineman. And it looks like that's potentially what has popped up now today, and is going to hold him out this week. I don't know if it's the exact same hand, but when the injury popped up and I knew that this person had dealt with him in the past, I reached out and asked him, and he confirmed. He's like, "Yeah, man, that's got to be the same freaking thing." So it's kind of frustrating. It's kind of annoying. You just traded for the guy, and now there's this lingering issue that got past our trainings. Our medical staff has gotten past how many other teams' medical staffs in the past, and just hasn't been corrected. And now it could potentially cost, the Texans a chance at a slim shot at a win, but it was there.
Yeah, no, I think he was an important part of keeping that offensive line functional. There's no doubt that the health of Houston's offensive line, and if they can continue to perform the way they did against Jacksonville, when Pittsburgh just has, I would say, an entirely different caliber of player up front to bring it, CJ, it's going to be harder to look good. There's just no doubt about it. You've got some things going for you. This is going to be, for a lot of this unit, their 3rd week in a row playing together with all these, or their 4th week with all these injuries. But when you're down to a 3rd tackle on either side of your line, and they can move those edge rushers to hunt that matchup every time, it is troubling, and you're going to have a really solid plan to get past that. One other thing I might bring up, and I was debating because I really like Jacksonville's pass rushers as well, but I think this might be the most complete receiving unit that Houston has faced this year in terms of like a pure burner on the field. Calvin Austin's been doing that. They're sending him on goes a lot. I think George Pickens is as talented as they come in the league. And, I guess Calvin Ridley could have put him in that conversations, but kind of some drops from him early, some rust coming back into the league. So, and then, of course, Allen Robinson has been in the league for a really long time. He's a good player, looking better. I mean, a lot like Robert Woods, that he's looking better at his next stop than he did last year, trying to come back in a new location. So how the secondary is going to hold up against those guys, because like we both talked about, this is a Pittsburgh team that they've really struggled to run the ball. And of course, if that happens for Houston, it's going to be an entirely different game. I'd expect that to be something that they continue to hold the Steelers' run game in check. But they have a lot of different pass catchers, whether that's Pat Freiermuth and, of course, Georgia's Darnell Washington at the 2 tight end spots. It's a dangerous group, and you got to be ready that, I mean, Pickett is going to – he's going to put the ball to whoever's open. I don't think there's one guy you really have to game plan for, as much as this is a whole host of dudes they've got out there.
Yeah. But I mean, we do have a couple positives though. Jimmy Ward came back last week.
Yep.
Played well. And we saw that Jalen Petrie is back at practice. I don't know if he's going to play. I guess that's still a little bit, hopefully, right. He was limited today on the injury report. So we'll see as the week goes on. Hopefully we can get him back out on the field. Henry To'oTo'o, man, is playing pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree.
Go back and watch the film, and go back and watch some of the snaps that Henry had, and it's very fundamentally sound. He's playing sound, fundamental football in his role, and I feel like that's been a huge plus, because I feel like some of the other guys in that group have not stepped up with the injuries that we've had.
Yeah.
Losing Denzel Perryman hurts. I feel like Christian Harris should have stepped up, and he really hasn't. And thankfully, Henry has a slight bit, because.
Do we know a timeline on Denzel Perryman?
He's not on IR, and so hopefully we maybe just one more week.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's kind of the same thing with Tavir. Tavir is in a cast right now, and potentially come back next week against Atlanta. So hopefully we see the same thing with Denzel Perryman. Perryman doesn't need surgery, so it's not as severe. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. And of course, we got to make predictions for the game. I feel like we've broken it down here. I mean, a lot of reasons to believe that Houston can play well with their surging young quarterback, and some defensive players returning to make this unit what we expect in the preseason. Of course, some downers like TJ Watt getting to play against a third string tackle. Storm, what is your score prediction for Sunday's game, and how do you see this one playing out for Houston?
The score is hard.
I also want to bring up the line. I don't know what the line is right now.
They were. Damn, I heard it earlier.
Looks like they're a 3-point favorite right now.
The Steelers are, right?
Yeah, Steelers -3.
So technically kind of like a 6-point, because you get 3 for at home for home field advantage. So like 6.5.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be a defensive battle. I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. I like that, and this is just a general observation throughout the NFL. We've had a lot of scoregamis so far this season. The best one last week was when the Dolphins dropped a 70 burger on the Broncos, and that was a cool one. I feel like we're going to be like a 17-14, 17-21 area. I don't think it's going to be. What's the line? What's the over-under on the score?
41.5. So you're about right.
So I think we're going to be pretty close to that, man. I don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring affair. I don't think the Texans win. I just think the injuries are going to be a little bit too much given who their opponent is. But that's fine. And I really want to see more growth this week, like we've seen for the past 3 weeks. We talked about that early on in the show, in the first couple episodes. That's what we wanted to see out of CJ and everybody else on the field, and it's growth, and that's really what I want. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go in the other direction. I will take Houston to win by a field goal, and here's why. The Steelers have made a living right now off of winning these one-score games. But what they haven't faced in these last 2 wins is a quarterback who makes the plays when you absolutely have to have him and when there's pressure in his face. That it was not Deshaun Watson in week 2. I think we all saw. In fact, I don't really think the Steelers had any business winning that game, and that was not Jimmy Garoppolo last week. I think this is an offense that, although talented, is deeply flawed schematically. This is something I can bet on DeMeco Ryans to come up with a good game plan against Matt Canada's offense and against what Pittsburgh has been trying to do. Maybe this is the fan in me loving the team, but I think there are momentum factors where I like Houston better at quarterback. I like Houston better schematically on at least – I like what they're doing on offense better schematically, and I trust DeMeco Ryans and some of getting a playmaker back like a Jalen Petrie into this to kind of continue to muddy that picture for opposing quarterbacks. What are you laughing at?
My wife is still texting me about this Taylor Swift thing, and she just sent me an infographic that says Travis Kelce's annual salary is lower than ticket sales for just one of Taylor Swift's concerts. Okay.
I mean, the facts are the facts.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to become a Taylor guy now, Pat.
I don't hate her. I just like.
You did mute her name on Twitter.
I actually haven't been able to yet. I can't figure it out on TweetDeck, and I've been trying to stay off my phone so I can pay attention here.
That's fair.
So
I appreciate you doing that. Well, I will. I'll take it. I think they're gonna break some touchdowns though. There are just enough playmakers in this game. I'll call it 24-21.
Okay. Who scores? Tank?
Who scores? I'll take I actually don't love the perimeter corners for Pittsburgh. I guess Tank's playing a lot on the perimeter too, so it doesn't matter. I think Nico will get back in the end zone. Let's give one to Tank. And I think you could very well see if one of those guys goes down and within 5 yards of the end zone, that Dameon Pierce gets it in there again.
I was hoping you'd go tight end.
I'd like to. It's just hard to say with those two when Dalton Schultz is running solid routes and dropping touchdowns. I mean, he definitely he dropped the touchdown on Sunday.
Can we talk about that pass?
Oh, tell the audience about it. It was so pretty.
And there was a few of them in that game. Like the receiver, tight end, whatever you want to call it, has not even made his break yet, and CJ is already throwing the ball because he's reading it, he's comfortable with it. He's confident in his throws, and he's making a damn – it's like he's playing darts. He's just – and the ball's there. The receiver turns around. The ball is 5 yards away. Boom, catch. Both – and you know what sucks? Dalton dropped the damn touchdown, and Nico dropped that third down. And both of those throws were immaculate. They were what you want out of a 10-year NFL quarterback, and CJ's doing it in week 3.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone interested, I actually think Solak, those were two of the four.
Solak had it, and QB School too, both had it.
Yeah, I would definitely go watch one of those if you just want to see how special some of the stuff that CJ Stroud is doing right now. We can talk about it all day, but go watch guys play in the NFL talk about it because they're in love with it. And so are we. In fact, that's what I mean. I think that Houston has a more functional offense in terms of what they're trying to do than I think Pittsburgh does. And if you can get Pittsburgh off the field and get their defense tired, eventually some of that quick decision making, some of those plays that a lot of quarterbacks aren't making, that CJ Stroud's willing to rip it, they're going to add up, and I think it could lead to a Houston win. Mike, I like that comment.
Yes. Yeah, that's great, Mike. Like 2:30, 2:45 in the morning is like the perfect time.
For I guess I got to continue to clarify for the podcast audience.
Yeah, because anybody
Mike,
that's not,
he commented, "What time are we pulling the fire alarm at the Steelers hotel?" I mean, whatever time we need to do it for the win. That's what I would say. But yeah, I'll take 24-21. Houston Texans win, move to 500 on the season.
All right, so let's jump over. We talked about this earlier before we did the show. We wanted to possibly get some questions in, and I feel like this is a good time that we can get some questions in because I asked people to do it in the comments, and they're dropping some questions.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I didn't know you
ready?
Did that, so let's see them. Yeah.
All right, so that was the first one from Mike. Jalen asked, "Do you guys think Dameon Pierce can be used a lot more in the passing game?"
I mean, I
personally don't at this point right now, just because of the offensive line situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're not using him in the passing game right now. Like, I think he's catching like at least 3 balls a game. And a lot of it's just that this system has other checkdowns and hots for him. I mean, if you look at early in the game against Jacksonville, they had Mechie just waiting there. I think
Yeah.
the system wants to get to it in other ways that are less obvious when Stroud's under fire. And it's not that Dameon Pierce isn't a passing weapon. I just think they have other things they want to go to. So would I be okay with that? Absolutely. Do I think they need to do it? Not necessarily. I think Dameon Pierce is a downhill runner, and I want to keep seeing him do what he does. And if they want to give him more passes, sure. But right now, keep doing what you're doing, Bobby Slowick.
Yeah, he's oh god, his rushing is way down. But yeah, he's had at least 2 receptions in every game so far. So
Okay. So
I mean, do we really? He had 3 last week. I don't think we see a huge uptick in that, but he's only on pace for like 565 yards right now. That's kind of scary.
yeah, he's had 3 targets. That's my bad.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we know an accurate timeline that Stingley will be out? No. I've seen conflicting. Brooks said 4 weeks. Aaron said 6 to 8. Aaron is very stuck on the 6 to 8. I don't know if you guys have noticed that on his tweets that he's dying on that hill. So Aaron seems fairly confident in the 6 to 8 weeks. So I think we'll roll with that right now and hopefully be surprised. Let's see. And there's not very many questions now. It's a bunch of back and forth between the viewers and the comments about LT and Schultz and.
That's fine.
So.
That's fine. We like that. We like healthy debate on this show.
Yep, 100%.
All right, Storm, for anyone listening for the first time, where can they find the rest of your content?
Twitter is at Patrick Storm HTX. It's the same thing on Instagram. And you told me this the other day that you want me to start writing more. I need to start writing more. So in the bio of my both profiles is my Substack. So you could feel free to hop over there. There's sometimes I have a separate chat over there. You guys can hop in and debate and talk and everything like that. I'll pop in there from time to time. You know, who knows, man? I may put some written content out here pretty soon. So, Jordan, yeah, you missed the nugget, man. You'll have to go back and watch it. I'm sorry, but it's not anything major. So.
Yeah. And for anyone listening, you can find me on Twitter at John H. Crumpler, at Texans Doc for all other social media. That's pretty much all I'm doing. All of our work and, of course, where this podcast is hosted is on TexansWire.usatoday.com. Go make sure you're checking out the articles there. We've got a lot of good people covering the team. And we're excited to be partnered with them this season. You can find my articles there as well, albeit I haven't written since last week. I also got to step it up now that Storm, I'm applied to residency. So we'll see. We'll see where Dr. Crumpler's going in the next few months.
Where'd you apply?
I applied to like 41 places. It's too many to talk to.
All over the country? Or did you like
pretty much just the Southeast? So like as far north as DC and as far west as Houston, and then kind of draw a line between those and everything underneath it.
Nice, man. Do you have one spot in particular you want besides Houston?
I'll talk to you about that off air. A lot of places I'd love. I don't know who's watching this. But
who cares? Let them get to know you, John. Come on.
That's fair. I love Emory. I love being here. I've got family in Atlanta, so that'd be great. I'm obviously looking at Houston. Going back to Carolina, where I went to college, would be great. So a lot of great programs that I applied to, and excited to see where that might end up for me.
Nice, man. I'm excited for you. I know it's been really cool to watch, and you talk about it all the freaking time. And I'm super pumped for you. And yeah, I know you stress out about it all the time, but you're kicking ass. So just keep it up, dude.
Thank you, brother. All right. And you got your son or your
my daughters, they're both right here. One of them almost knocked over one of the lights just now. So
well, on that note, guys, thank you for listening to another Texans podcast. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week to recap, hopefully, a strong game against the Steelers. So go Texans, and we'll see you next time.
I hope and real quick before we cut out, I hope for all the Astros fans that are in here, I really hope they win. I really do. They need to win. They need to go out and beat the crap out of Seattle tonight. So we'll be watching.
Miami's gonna beat